Hi there. Welcome to the Sports Talk podcast. I'm Aiden Kelly, and I'm here with Evan Hool. And we're going to be talking about some NBA today. We're going to do our Western Conference and Eastern Conference preview. I hope you guys enjoy this and comment, like, and subscribe for more Sports Talk podcasts if you like it. And if you don't, just give us a review and tell us what we can do to make things better. Thanks. So, basically, what we're going to be talking about today is our Western Conference preview and our Eastern Conference preview, and we might talk a little bit about the playoffs. A lot of things happened this summer in the NBA. It's probably one of the craziest off seasons since I started watching the NBA. In a while, we had Paul George going to the Thunder, Jimmy Butler going to the the Timberwolves. We had Chris Paul going to the Rockets, joining up with James Harden down there. So we're just gonna start off with our Western Conference standings. Evan, I think I'll let you go with this.
All right. Well, number one, obviously, I just have to take the Warriors. I don't think there's anybody, even with all the trades that the Rockets and Thunder put together. I think they both improved their team, but it's not on the level of the Warriors yet. Second seed, I still have the Spurs, just because I don't think you can really count Kawhi out. I think he's going to be the leading MVP candidate next year. And along with Greg Popovich, they picked up Rudy Gay. I think they had a quiet offseason compared to the other contenders, but still solid. Number three, I took the Thunder just because I think Sam Presti really pulled off a great offseason here. Obviously, picking up Paul George was huge. Now Westbrook actually has another 1-2 punch, just like the one he had with Kevin Durant. But I personally think Paul George probably fits with Westbrook a little bit better. And number four, I have the Rockets. And the reason I had them dropping this much was just because I think picking up too many ball dominant players. They already have Chris Paul and James Harden, and they're looking to trade for Melo. And I just think getting those three players, they might not fit very well together. Number five, I took the T Wolves because I'm just thinking they probably had the biggest offseason out of any Western Conference team, in my opinion. Picking up Jimmy Butler, signing Taj Gibson, reuniting some of the Bulls players with their former coach, Tom Thibodeau. I think, defensively, this is going to be a great team, not to mention offensively with Andrew Wiggins, Cat, already young stars who are
I
ready
think
to
they're the
contribute.
NBA League Pass team to watch this year. I think they get the League Pass award.
Um, At the sixth seed, I'd have to take the Pelicans just because of the sheer talent they have in the front court with Boogie and Anthony Davis. And I think if they can stay healthy, like if Drew Holiday can stay healthy, honestly, I think he can tie together that team perfectly. He used to be an all-star caliber point guard, so he has the talent to really tie it up and just glue those guys together. Seven, I just took the Nuggets. I think adding Paul Millsap next to Nikola Jokic is about as perfect of a fit as you can get. Um, I think they built a good team. They have a young core surrounding Jokic, and I think this year might be their year just to push up a little bit. And the last playoff spot I have to give to the Trailblazers. Just a great backcourt, of course, with lots of scoring, playmaking potential. Just a beautiful 1-2 punch. And I also think Josef Nurkic, if he's good and healthy this year, can be a really big help to their playoff push. Um, other than their big, Other than some of their bad contracts, I think honestly the Trailblazers are in a good spot if they can shave off some of those contracts. And obviously I had to snub a lot of great teams just because the Western Conference is so stacked this year. But that's what I think. What do you think, Aiden?
Well, to start off, I kept the Warriors in number one, but I made a few tweaks with the Rockets jumping the Spurs for the second seed. I think especially if the Rockets get mellow with a trade with the Knicks, I think the Rockets jump up because D'Antoni will be able to split up uh, Chris Paul and James Harden so that their second line has James Harden running the offense and their first line has Chris Paul, or you can change it up a little bit, give Harden a little extra minutes because he has his legs still.
But both those players, they're just known for having the ball in their hands. Like, how can you?
I know, but here's the thing: you could basically just swap CP3, CP3 for James Harden, and then you're basically running that pick and roll 17-second offense basically the entire game with like switching those guys up, and whoever's kind of hot during that stretch of the game, you can kind of implement them so they have the ball in their hands more. And I think people don't realize how good of a spot up shooter how good of spot up shooters they really are, because I think James Harden's a good spot up shooter, and if CP3 is attracting double teams or he's running off of pick and rolls with Clint Capella and all of them, I think he's able to create more space for James Harden so he can hit open shots. I think Carmelo Anthony will learn that he's going to have to be the third option on that team. This is implying the fact that he does come to the Rockets, and if he does if he's able to make the sacrifice of not taking 28 shots a game. I think their bench is still strong. They re-signed Eric Gordon, Clint Capella. They have the solid bench like usual. Nene took less money, I believe, to stay. Daryl Morey did a really good job this year. I think he should win Executive of the Year next year if the Rockets can get the second seed finish. And then I just put the Spurs down at number 3. Of course, the Spurs are going to be the Spurs. They're going to play solid defensively, probably win something like 60 games during the regular season, maybe 55. Kawhi Leonard, like Evan said, leading MVP candidate. I think he'll have to be number 1 because I don't really see James Harden or Russell Westbrook taking over the race. Just because they have such good supports, or they have a second option. Kawhi Leonard's really the only one without a second option now. They did sign Rudy Gay, who I think will be a good second scoring option. I think he can hit spot up jumpers and take it to the rim sometimes, and I think he plays serviceable defense. Of course, everybody who plays on the Spurs with Greg Popovich turns out to be a way better defender. So
where do you think they slot in Rudy Gay? Then is he a contributor off the bench? Do you think?
I think
the starting lineup.
I think you slot Rudy Gay in if you want to play small ball, taking off LaMarcus Aldridge and putting him at the 4, so that you have or you can even put LaMarcus Aldridge at the 5 and give Pau Gasol a break. What's his name? Patty Mills is still there, so he'll be serviceable. Tony Parker played unbelievable in the playoffs this season, so he's still around. I really like Danny Green's all right. I don't think he should have been an all defensive player. I think he robbed Avery Bradley of that award, but I think the Spurs are going to be solid again, but I do think that the Rockets have just done more. I've gone more firepower, more star power just to push them over and take the second seed in the West. Number 4 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Paul George, of course, left the Pacers, came to OKC. Probably going to be a rental for the Lakers, but
I can't see it. I can see him staying, honestly.
I think
the Lakers are such an up and coming team. At this stage in Paul George's career, he's 27, 28?
26, I believe.
Either way, he's in his prime right now. And
let's look that up right now, but keep talking.
When it comes down to it, players want to win, and you have Paul George. Is he really going to leave a contender? It just depends on how OKC does this year. But is there any way that he's going to leave a contender who maybe can who have actually they don't have good chances against Golden State, but they're in punching range. They have the firepower now. Will he leave that in his prime to go to an up and coming team who's not?
Yeah, okay, so 27.
Playoff talk.
27 years old. So I guess I think he's got some time still. I just think that he's basically said that he's going to OKC when he was in Indiana. Now he's in a different place, and he has Russell Westbrook, so that definitely helps. And they're gonna be a really good team next year. I just don't think they're going to be the best new team in the West because there's just a bunch of teams that got completely new cores of players. But I think the Thunder are going to be really good. I just think they're going to run into some troubles with because their depth just isn't as good as the first three teams in the league. Patrick Patterson has always been an iffy player for me when he was playing with the Raptors. I've always thought that he's a stretch four that doesn't really shoot the ball that well. Defensively, I feel like he's a little weaker than people really let on. I don't know.
I think honestly, I think a lot of people are overlooking the Patrick Patterson signing. To me, he's a stretch four. I think he shoots the ball decently well, but at the same time, he's a solid defender, right? I think OKC's gonna be great at defense next year. They re-signed Andre Roberson to a bargain deal. You slot him in with Paul George on the perimeter. Paul George is a great defender. Those two can night in night out guard the other team's best player. They can slide around positions 1 to 4 defending along with Steven Adams in the paint. That's a very good
I've always
defensive
found
team.
though like Roberson's one of those guys that the problem is like if you put him in late in the game, then you have basically a guy that can't score from like the key out. So I think they have troubles there because basically what teams could start doing is start having the player guarding Andre Roberson roam and start almost doubling up on Paul George or Russell Westbrook and take away their scoring options. But then if you take out Andre Roberson and you put in someone like Alex Abrinas, then you have a worse defender but someone who can shoot the open jumper. But the problem is with the pick and roll now, switches are players have just become so good at screening that it's almost like they force the other team to switch, and then you could get Alex Abrinas being switched onto a guy like James Harden or Chris Paul or someone like Kawhi Leonard or I don't know, even I feel like Klay Thompson could take it to the rim against Alex Abrinas. Like
Yeah.
I don't, and I think the Thunder are going to be all right. I just don't think they're going to be as good as say the Rockets are next year. I think the Rockets improved their team a lot more than the Thunder did. And I think the Spurs will be the Spurs because they have arguably the best coach in NBA history.
Here's the thing: the Spurs, the Thunder, and the Rockets. I can't honestly say that any of them at this point can beat the Warriors in a 7-game series. But I think those three teams, 2, 3, and 4 in any order, are all very equal.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see who battles out for the second. And who knows? Honestly, Steph goes down with a sprained ankle in the playoffs. Even Klay Thompson or Draymond get injured, and you've got yourself a series. Any three of those teams, you never know. One injury can just shake it all up.
Yeah, I get that. That is a good point. Injuries can do a lot to change everything up. And, number 5 here are the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Twolves, they did well in the offseason. They got Jimmy Butler for Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, and I don't know if they gave a pickup. Yeah, they gave Lauri Markkanen. Yeah, they gave up Lauri Markkanen, right?
Yeah.
They gave Markkanen up. I think that team. I think they take a step and they become a playoff team, and I think they take the 5th seed because you have that big three of Wiggins, of Andrew Wiggins, Jimmy Butler, and Karl Anthony Towns, along with Jeff Teague playing point guard over there now. I think you have a solid starting 5. Muhammad coming off the bench, Ram Shabazz coming off the bench,
Taj Gibson,
very
experienced.
The Timberwolves and Tom Thibodeau. I think they have a rock solid defensive team.
I can't see them making a huge playoff push at this point, just because the overall talent of the West. But give these guys a couple years because, when you think about it, Cat's never been to the playoffs. Wiggins never been to the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one thing I think the Thunder have on the T-Wolves, no one on that team has really been on a real shallow playoff push. So it's like Jimmy Butler, the farthest he's gone is like the second round.
Mhm.
Uh, Carl Towns, Carl Towns and Andrew Wiggins both never been in the playoffs. Jeff Teague, of course, went to the conference finals, but it's like it's Jeff Teague, and he's not really the guy contributing much to your offense. So my number 6 spot, the Denver Nuggets. Now I liked the Nuggets last year. I thought when Yusuf Nurkic left and Mason Plumlee came to the team, I thought they were going to make the playoffs, and they just missed out on it. Portland came up big in the last days of the season, so they missed out. I think they're going to push and make it to the playoffs and get the solid 6 seed. I mean, Nikolai Jokic, whatever his name is, I can't pronounce it right now, but I think he's going to have a strong push this season. Paul Millsap signed with them. They lost Gallinari, but the thing about them is they have a lot of good young guys, a lot of good guard depth. I think Jamal Murray still has potential to be really good. He's still young, 20 years old or something like that. So he has a lot of potential to become a really good 18 and 10 guy. Maybe 18 and 8 because I don't think he's as willing of a passer, but I think as a combo guard that can play both ends of the floor, I think he has a place in the league. Moutier, they don't really have a point guard because Moutier's kind of had a disappointing second year in the league. But of course, Jamal Murray could play as a two guard and a point guard, so then Gary Harris could kind of slide in and play as that two guard role. So I think the Nuggets hop up and make it as the 3rd seed in the Western Conference next year. My next pick, of course, the Portland Trailblazers. Portland's one of those teams that just because they're in the Western Conference, they just have trouble. I mean, Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, one of the top 5 backcourts in the league. Damian Lillard's always that guy that's really fun to watch, but problem is that the playoffs is just going to always be really tough for them because I just don't think they can push for a high seed, and when they are in a high seed, there's just so much talent that they can't really thrive in the playoffs, to say the least. They need for the Trailblazers to really do something in the playoffs. I think they need a really good wing player, someone like I don't know, like Gallinari would have been a good pickup for them if they took him. Paul George would have absolutely been a great fit for them. But
I think the problem with the Trailblazers right now is they're a good team, but they aren't good enough, and they don't have the money or the assets to really pick up enough firepower to even have a shot in the West.
I mean, like you said, they signed Alan Crabb to a lot of money, and he didn't really pan out. They have Evan Turner in a big contract, and he wasn't the same player that everybody thought he was gonna be because he had a great playoff series, I think, for the Celtics a year before or something, and he left and went to the Trailblazers for a lot of money, but he just wasn't as good as he was like the year before. I just don't think they really push for the Western Conference. I think they run into a really tough team in the first round of the playoffs. Number 8, the team that everybody I think is counting out because Chris Paul's gone. People have to realize though they still have, when healthy, Blake Griffin is still like the second or third best power forward in the game. So people got to realize he can still rebound the ball. He can still score in the post. DeAndre Jordan's a great rim protector. I think he'll always be in the conversation for all defensive first or second team. They got Patrick Beverly. He's a solid point guard. Austin Rivers, a lot of people don't like him because his dad kind of babied him a lot. But I think Austin Rivers is a better player than most people think he is.
But in such a star-studded West, like how can you even how can Austin Rivers? Well, now their backcourt's going to be something like Patrick Beverly and Lou Williams instead of Chris Paul and
Yeah.
JJ Redick. So like,
Well,
how can they're in such like the West is just too packed for me to think that the Clippers can then make it.
I think the Clippers still make it just because Doc Rivers is still a good coach. People have to realize that. He's still a championship coach. Not many coaches in the league can say that. So he's good. Austin Rivers, like I said, he's better than than most people think. Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams, they don't have a good backcourt, but they don't have a great backcourt, but they're still pretty solid. Blake Griffin's gonna have to step it up. It's gonna be his team now, so he's gonna have to really show what he can do. DeAndre Jordan's always gonna be a good rim protector that can't play in the last 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. So that's going to be a trouble. That's going to be a struggle for them. But I think they sneak into the eighth seed and really do well. Yeah, no. But I think the Clippers do better than people expect this year, and I think first round and out because they're not beating anyone in the top four in the West. Number 9, the New Orleans Pelicans. I think become the Pelicans this year. Their team struggle from coaching being in having the wrong attitude about how they should play basketball. I think they should play more of a 3 out, 2 in offense than a 4 out, 1 in. That's a problem that I find. Alvin Gentry tries to coach too much perimeter into DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis. I think they haven't really upgraded either the shooting guard or small forward position, and I think they should have tried to push for George Hill and tried to overpay him if they had to, because I don't know how healthy Drew Holiday's gonna be, and even when he is healthy, I don't know how good he really is. Uh, they don't so they have a little bit of trouble down there in New Orleans, and I think people have been caught up in their star power, thinking that this team's going to be a contender or a top 6 team, something like that in the Western Conference.
They also just signed Rajon Rondo, but I'm not really sure where that then fits in. Like I could see him coming off the bench as a point guard.
Is Holiday then going to play as a shooting guard?
Can he?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I haven't seen Drew Holiday play in a while just because he's been injured so much. And he's just missed so much time from the court. Uh, he's an all right shooter, but I don't know if he's gonna be an elite shooter like what you need your shooting guard to be nowadays. Rondo, of course, is like a point guard that's not a great shooter. Is a pretty good passer, can run an offense pretty well. But I feel like he's going to be a guy that takes away touches from DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis. And I think in the end, I just don't think the Pelicans do well enough. And I feel like DeMarcus Cousins is going to head somewhere else in free agency because I just don't see this working out between those two. And I wish they could. I wish Alvin Gentry ran a better system that would let those two thrive better, playing Boogie as a low post center and then Anthony Davis roaming around on the high post where I think, fits better. I think they'd be a lot better if they did that. And if they surround themselves with shooters, then that would be even better. But the thing is, they just didn't really surround themselves with shooters during the offseason, and their offense turns either DeMarcus Cousins or Anthony Davis into a fourth guard. And I think the Pelicans just miss out on the playoffs this year.
Well, for me at number 9, I took the Grizzlies. I still think that Marc Gasol's a good player. I think Mike Conley's probably going to be. He's never been All-Star. I think he's probably going to go down as one of the best players in history to not make an All-Star team. I still think he's a great point guard. And like I just think they lost Zach Randolph, but I don't love the signing to the Kings that they went with, but I don't think that loses too much. So the Memphis, they're still tied into the Chandler Parsons contract, so they didn't have a huge off season, but I think like they ran it back sort of. So I think they'll still take the ninth seed. I just don't think they have enough firepower to crack the top eight in the West now.
Um, yeah, I think Memphis has always had trouble because they've just never had a 3-point shooter that can come on and knock down open jumpers. Conley's an all right 3-point shooter. Gasol plays well in the low post, but can kind of like play in the high post and play make because he's a really good passer for a big man. Um, is Tony Allen still there?
Yeah.
Tony Allen's still there. Who else? They like power forward. They're gonna have to go with JaMychal Green or someone like that. Whoever's there. I don't know. I didn't have him in my top 9 or top 10 in the West. For me, for number 10, I took the baby Lakers, Los Angeles Lakers. I thought I'm really high on Lonzo Ball. I loved what I saw from him in spring league this year. They signed Kentavious Caldwell Pope. They have Brandon Ingram still. Julius Randle, Brooke Lopez. They got rid of Timofey Mozgov with that bad contract. If they shed the Luol Deng contract, this team can then sign another piece that might help them, or they can just wait out for Paul George, like I think they're probably going to do. Their team looks really good right now. I think Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka have done an excellent job rebuilding this team, and I think next season, if they get another star like Paul George or even LeBron James or maybe even a DeMarcus Cousins, I think this team takes a step and becomes a playoff team in the Western Conference. I think Lonzo averages something like maybe 14 and 11, 14 and 10, something like that. I think he's the best passer we've seen in a long time. I think he's really, when you think about him, he's really a 6'6" Steve Nash, who not as good of a shooter as Steve Nash, but can push the ball up the floor, can jump better than Steve Nash really could. You could even say, like everybody else was saying, Jason Kidd, guy that really loved to push the floor, loved to get up and attack the basket in transition. But I think the thing that's different about Lonzo Ball is really in transition, he doesn't really dribble the ball up the floor. He passes the ball up the floor, and he's a better passer than we've really seen in a while. I mean, his passes in the summer league, I know it's summer league, but they were just something else. And I think Magic Johnson really sees a lot of himself in Lonzo. So I think the Lakers made a really good choice, and I think Lonzo and the Lakers, along with everyone else, Brandon Ingram, I think, takes a step and starts averaging somewhere between 15 and 18 points a game next season. And I think the Lakers really improve and get that 10th seed.
For me, like I can't see the Lakers finishing that well this season or even the season after that, but I think like their timeline lines up pretty well. They've got a lot of young talent, got good prospects, and of course they're Los Angeles, so they're always going to be able to sign big name free agents. They've got money, and so I think those young players, like by the time they hit their peak, Golden State should be gone, should be in decline, and a lot of the powerhouses, maybe the league will hopefully balanced out by then, and I think they're putting themselves in a good spot to like set up for the future.
The thing I see about Lonzo Ball is, though, that I don't know if people really watched a lot of him in spring league, but every time he was on the floor, the Lakers' ball movement was a lot better. Like they were going from 1 to 2 passes per possession to about 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 sometimes. And I think stars like Paul George and DeMarcus Cousins look at him and think, hey, that guy can get me the ball. That guy can really help me thrive. And I think Lonzo is the key to helping them sign a new free agent that will push them into the playoffs. And say LeBron James comes, like a lot of people are starting to say he will be coming next season, then the LeBronzo effect kicks in, and all of a sudden that team's a contender if they get him and Paul George. So I think Lonzo Ball could be the key to them getting that new free agent just because of how good of a playmaker he is and how good of his passing is and how he gets everybody involved. Uh, I don't know. I think as a scorer he can improve. I don't think he's going to be a great scorer. I think he's going to average somewhere between 17 to 18 points per game throughout his entire career, but I think he'll always get a double-double sort of thing like that. And yeah, I think Lonzo has that star power that the Lakers really need. And a lot of people,
I think having like Lonzo there and Magic Johnson like as president like that, even that strengthens the already incredible appeal to free agents in Los Angeles. Like I can see players wanting to go and pair up with like a young promising guard who can get them those like who can just create opportunities for them. And I could see people wanting to go somewhere where the the front office is helmed by a Hall of Famer and a legend.
yeah, I like it. Who do you get at number 10?
Number 10, I took the Clippers. I I I I struggle to even put them there, but I just think the rest of the teams in the West aren't as good as just don't have the talent as them. To me, it's just the Clippers. They just don't have the firepower. They still have DeAndre. They still have um, Blake Griffin, but I guess you could have Blake Griffin running the team. He's a decent passer, but I I don't think Patrick Beverly or Lou Williams or Austin Rivers. I don't think they match up with like all the stars. I mean, you look at like all the great guards that are just in the West, and I just can't see them matching up. Now you got Jimmy Butler there, of course, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Chris Paul, even like the Trailblazers, like Mike Conley. There's just too many good guards, and I don't think a Patrick Beverly can carry it, like can run a team on his own. And I don't know who else they have that can play make there. If you think Austin Rivers, I was never too high on him, but I just don't think in such like a star-studded West, like I don't think the Clippers have what it takes really.
I think I think a lot of people get caught up in the fact that they think guards can carry a team all by themselves, but I think really when you think about it, guards really need to have either another guard or a really strong wing player or a really strong post player for them to really carry a team. Like they need that other guy with them. And that's the thing, like Russell Westbrook this year, he got to the playoffs by himself, but isn't like they didn't really get anywhere in the playoffs sort of thing. Like I feel like a lot of people don't would hate me for saying this, but if Kevin Durant was leading the team by himself, I mean, he's going to score a lot easier, and I feel like if they get a different like a less star-studded point, I'm just saying that I think Kevin Durant leading the team by himself does a little bit better than Russell Westbrook does leading the team by himself. Uh, I think so. I think with the whole point guard argument, like uh, Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum are like two of the top point guard slash shooting guard combo in the league, and they're really when you think of it, C.J.'s kind of just like a second point guard, but that team never gets anywhere because they
Well,
just don't have the solid wing presence or a solid post presence yet, and they're hoping that Nurkic becomes that, but you just gotta. It's a lot of hoping, you know.
I liked Nurkic when he came over to Portland. I mean, he got injured right away, but like coming over to Portland, he had a few good games. I don't know how many games he played with them, but I liked him. But
Had
I
that
think
one 27 and like 20
yeah, he
game or
set
whatever.
career highs in almost every category. But
Yeah,
I just think it's too small of a sample size to trust him to take over their
yeah.
front court.
I mean,
They don't have another option, but
yeah, but back to the Clippers, like I think I forgot to mention him when I was like talking about them, but Danilo Gallinari's there now,
mm,
and that's the best small forward they've had in years. It's
I
just that he just came like a few years too late.
I've got a problem with Gallinari though. At this point in his career, he played more minutes this year as a 4 than as a 3, and he's getting to the age where it's going to become tougher for him to keep up with small forwards on the perimeter. So he's going to want to play more of his minutes at the power forward, but unfortunately that now overlaps with Blake Griffin, your best player. So I see why they signed him. They're definitely going to need that firepower to try to keep up in the playoff race, but
Mhm.
I don't like the fit with Gallinari and Blake Griffin. Um I don't think either's a great defender,
Mhm.
and I think Gallinari, as he continues to age, he's a pretty big small forward. So I think he's just gonna slot over to the power forward in like the rear end of his career. But now that Blake's there, you have a little bit of a logjam.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I mean, he's a good perimeter shooter. I don't think he's the best defender. Like, I mean, defensively, I don't think he's stopping anyone like Jimmy Butler, Paul George, or Kevin Durant, or Kawhi Leonard. Like, I don't think he's stopping any of those players. So they have that hole. But I still think people underestimate Blake Griffin's star power,
Hmm. I
and I think they have a good enough like backcourt. Like, I mean, their backcourt's better than like say a lot of teams in the league right now. Like,
yeah,
so I think they can still make it to the playoffs. Just I don't think they're. I just think it's just not going to be enough for them. And I think in a few years they just completely uh, drop out of the playoffs. I just don't think it's going to be a year. A year later, they're all of a sudden just going to fall off a cliff and just drop that much from the fourth seed in the West to like the 11th or 10th seed or whatever. So
I just think Chris Paul was too important to that team to, and now he's gone. Like you
yeah,
can't replace that really.
yeah, yeah, that's true too. Uh, I really think that they do need another like defensive stopper, but I think because they have money to sign players still. That's the thing. So if next season they could all of a sudden like nobody really realizes this, but I mean people think LeBron's going to the Lakers, but he could as well go to the Clippers too,
Mm.
right? I mean they're in Los Angeles as well, and even though I don't think they have the same type of attraction that the Lakers have to him, just because they have like so many young, smart players that can help him win better than the Clippers do, But I don't know. I think the Clippers are still able to make the playoffs, just they don't go anywhere, and I think they just probably get swept by the Warriors and get in the first round.
To me, these are the types of teams in the league that just need to blow it up because what's the upside to a
Well,
Clippers
yeah, no.
running it back with Blake? I mean, it's tough to like trade a star player or something, but you're looking at it and there's no way their GMs, their coaches, even their players, like there's no way anybody thinks that they have a shot to make a run in the playoffs at this point. Like, what's your upside? They bring in Gallinari, so but what's the point? Like you aren't going to get there at this point. Your best bet, I would have thought they should have blown it up the moment they traded Chris Paul, but I don't see why you trade Chris Paul and then run it back with the same team just without its most important piece.
Oh yeah, like it's the the way the league works now is it's almost better to be the 15th seed in the West and the 8th seed in the West. Like,
Hmm.
because like if you're just making it to the first round, sure, fans are coming out to the game for two home games that are gonna make you a bit of money, but it's like you're probably gonna get swept by one of the top teams, and then all of a sudden you have a really bad pick, and that's a problem I see with Dallas like having because Mark Cuban is totally against tanking, and because of that, his team's always going to be in like the 10th, ninth, 11th seed, and I just don't know. I just don't know if they're going to be able to do it. and that's a problem because it's tough to really rebuild a team when you're not in the bottom, like the bottom three in the league, like 15, 14, or 13 or something like that in your conference. Moving on now. Moving on, we got
Should we
the
move on to
11th
the
seed.
East?
I think let's do the Western Conference today, and then we'll do the Eastern Conference later,
Okay.
some other time, because we're running short on time.
Mm-hmm.
We've already been going for a while. Number 11, I think we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put Grindtown Grizzlies. I think Memphis. I've always had a soft spot for Memphis. I've always liked how they play. I mean, Mike Conley, I think he's one of my favorite point guards in the Western Conference. And I think he's an underrated defender, and on the offensive end of the court, he still plays really well too. I think he does really well, and I think the Spurs should have tried to sign him last offseason when he got paid to that huge contract. But with the Grizzlies, they have Conley, who's being paid like something like over 5 years, 160 million or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They have Chandler Parsons, who's being paid like 80 million over 4 years now, and he didn't even play. He only played like 3 games last season for them. As a shooter, like I think he's a good shooter, but I don't think he contributes enough anywhere else to really pay him that much money to keep him there. So I think they have trouble signing big name free agents because Memphis isn't really the most attractive place to play in the Western Conference. So they didn't have another draft pick because of course they didn't have a great draft pick just because they finished with the 7th seed in the West last year. But I just don't see them really doing well this season and competing in such a tough conference, especially because they still don't have a great shooter. Chandler Parsons is always iffy with his injuries and his history of not really performing well. So it's like, I think he has trouble. I think the Grizzlies sort of have trouble making it into the playoffs and really competing. And I have them at the 11th seed, and I think this is sort of the year they got to think maybe it's time to trade some pieces away. Maybe a future Marc Gasol trade to a team like the Rockets.
Yeah.
A little bit of a prediction there, but
I mean, I think they're aging too much.
yeah,
Like they don't have.
like Conley's like 30 or something.
I think he's a little older than 30, but
Yeah, I know. And Gasol's like 34, and then the rest of their team, they don't have a young guy that's really coming up.
and if they do, they can't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I think the Grizzlies were always like a little like a toned down version of the Spurs.
but they didn't luck into Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, exactly. And they just never had like another like a young player coming up in the system that was going to carry their franchise forward and that they could build around for the future. But so I think they have trouble with that, and I think they finish with the 11th seed in the West. For you, who did you have at 11?
11, I had the Jazz. Obviously they lost Hayward. Did they end up losing Hill? Yeah.
George Hill left.
Where'd he go?
Sacramento.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. And that hurts. That's two like big. I think George Hill's kind of underrated this year, but I thought he was great. They held on to Joe Ingles. They still have Rudy Gobert. So I still think with their length they can be a good defensive team again. I just think you lost your star. You lost like the player like, and I feel bad for Utah because they built this team from within for the most part, and they built it up, and this was finally their year, right? This was supposed to be. I would have Jazz probably top 4 if they still held on to Hayward and Hill, and it sucks because this is one of those teams that they aren't like the Warriors, I mean, the Warriors built up from within, but the Jazz are obviously a small market team. They can't attract big name free agents and stuff, but they have internal growth. They built this team through the draft, and all of a sudden, just like that, Hayward's gone. All of their hard work is demolished, and now here they are back to square one. And I think they're good enough. Like if they're in the East, I would have them pretty high, but it's just in the West. Like your best player is Gobert. I think he's still Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but he's just not good enough on his own, really.
Yeah.
12. At 12, I took the Suns. I really like Josh Jackson coming into the league. They took him, and like I think he fits their team pretty well. I think he can be a really good winger to side with Devin Booker. This team, they're setting themselves up nicely for the future, but they aren't good enough now. But I think they're going to be a fun, exciting young team to watch. They just aren't going to be able to do much right now. I think they trade Eric Bledsoe and try to get some more young players. Because I mean, Eric Bledsoe is a fringe all-star in the East. Like he's a good player, and I think they get rid of him, and because he just doesn't fit their timeline. I think he's 28, and
Yeah.
they bring in more young prospects, and they just wait for the Warriors to crumble.
Yeah, I think Devin Booker's my favorite. I think he might be my favorite player in the league now that I think about it. Like Lonzo, of course, is up there, but I think Devin Booker's still number one. I mean, he scored 70 points, kind of a suspected 70 points because I think Boston was kind of giving up by then
Mm-hmm.
because they were up by so much. But that's still like close to like 50 points without like the huge 20-point fourth quarter where they just sort of were stopping. But I think for me, I just want to talk about the Jazz some more. I just think because I had them at number 12, I think the Jazz just don't have enough like firepower
Mm-hmm.
on offense to really carry them. And I think George Hill could have been that guy that kind of
I can't.
put some offense and maybe push them to a quick ninth or eighth seed. But they're another one of those teams that just like now they're in this like sort of pit in the Western Conference where it's kind of like you're not good enough to like contend in the West, but you're not bad enough to be a first round lottery or a lottery pick, and you just gotta hope something happens for you to get like another player. So it's like it's a problem like what small market teams have in the league. It's either they either luck into a really good draft pick and have a really strong player, but he'll probably leave in the offseason because he can usually get just as much money if he plays somewhere else.
I mean, you think like OKC, they they've been a franchise for 8 years, I think. Kevin Durant leaves. There's no OKC's never signed a free agent to more than a $15 million contract. They've in their history, they've never signed a big free agent. So like, how do you replace the void? That team was built around two superstars, but you can't do anything in free agency. Nobody wants to go to Oklahoma. Same thing with like teams like Indiana, teams like Utah. Like if a star player leaves, like
Sacramento too,
yeah,
right?
Sacramento, like you have to. That's why Sam Presti did a good job in the trades, but at that point you can't rely on free agents to sign there. So unless you're a contender, in which case maybe they'll come on to win, but a mediocre small market team has almost no advantages to like a team like Los Angeles
Oh yeah.
or something like that. So it hurts because Gordon Hayward's gone, and it's almost impossible then for Utah to fill that void without parting with a ton of young assets or
I
something.
mean, the whole Supermax deal that they have in the NBA, where if you make an All NBA team, you can get a Supermax from the team that you got the All NBA team appearance with.
But it can
But
that's a
but
little.
here's the thing, not very like Paul George and Gordon Hayward are perfect examples. They were all stars, but they didn't make the All NBA team because there's there's only so many spots available, and there's only like 9 wing spots available for the All NBA team, and they're not a top. If you're not a top 10 wing, but you're still like your team's best
Yeah.
player, and you're good enough to push them into like the playoffs and make them good. If you don't get that supermax deal, you can just go to another place where it's nicer to
It's
live.
same amount of money.
Same amount of money, exactly. So that's the problem with this whole supermax deal thing in the collective bargaining agreement and the whole salary cap issue in the NBA. It's just that players now can get just as much money playing on another team as the team they can get as the team that drafted them. And even if you don't want to, even if you do have like can qualify for like the supermax, like someone like John Wall, like the Wizards aren't even like the smallest market, but I just don't think basketball's that big in the Washington area or in the Washington D.C. area. So it's like now someone like him, he qualifies for the supermax, but he doesn't really want to take it because he wants to win a championship, and his team's like good enough to make top 5 in the East, top 4, but LeBron's still there. So you're not making it out of the conference finals, and that's probably like the best thing you can get to, and like the Celtics are still probably better than them. So it's like they're probably the highest they get is maybe Eastern Conference Finals, probably Eastern Conference Semifinals. So it's like even players that qualify for the supermax, they're still making a lot of money if they go somewhere else and like take like a regular max deal. So it's like the supermax, the NBA like money's the whole contract situation. I just don't think works right now.
Mm.
But I think we should talk about it in another episode. Let's kind of speed through these
Yeah.
last few teams.
All right. Well, at
'Cause we're-
13, I had Lakers. I just don't. I think give them a few years. Obviously, I'm guessing some free agents will sign, and they'll be a lot better. They'll move up.
Yeah.
14, Kings. Just because I think they had a good draft. They don't have enough established pieces to do much. This is irrelevant. Like we all know, the Kings aren't making the playoffs. So hopefully they just get another good pick. Their young guys develop. I really like De'Aaron Fox, one of my favorite picks. So I think he can be something extraordinary in the league. I love his play style. And 15, the Mavs. Dirk's too old. Their number one option now is Harrison Barnes.
He doesn't want to be there anymore,
It's-
and it's like
I like Dennis Smith Jr. as their pick, but I just they don't have, once again, they just don't have the talent to compete in the West.
yeah,
All right.
13. I had the Kings. I think they did a really good job this offseason. They signed George Hill. They signed Randolph. They still have Buddy Hield there. I think they have a decent team, but they're not making the playoffs, and I think they're still a lottery team. The Mavericks, Dennis Smith Jr. I think is a candidate for Rookie of the Year. Averages something like 20 points and 7 assists with 2 steals, something like that in his rookie season. Puts up an insane stat line for a rookie, but I just don't think he.
I think he'll put up good stats just because he'll be one of the better options on that team.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you're right. He'll
But-
put up good stats.
Of course, Dirk's gone and Mark Cuban's against tanking, so they'll probably get a higher seed than this. But I think because they still have like Yogi Ferrell and Steph Curry,
Yeah.
but I just don't think right now, looking at their team talent wise, they're the 14th. And then I put Suns at number 15. Like I said, Devin Booker I really like, but other than that, like Eric Bledsoe isn't always healthy. Don't know if he really wants to play there anymore. Josh Jackson, I didn't really watch enough of Kansas. From what I've seen, though, I think he's more of a defensive juggernaut, not really an offensive force like they kind of need. I think the Suns kind of collapse this year and have to like start their tanking, and really I think they look to trade Eric Bledsoe so they can free up some cap room and maybe go out and sign someone big next season.
I like Josh Jackson like as a piece in Portland. I think he'll be an all-star one day, and like as a two-way player, I think he's probably one of the better probably the best two-way player in the draft, in my opinion. He's just like a good wing. I think he fits them pretty well because he's good in transition. And to me, like he's kind of like a young Andre Iguodala. Like I think that's what his peak is. He could develop into like a prime Andre Iguodala if he's good enough. I don't know if he has a good outside shot or not.
I don't like. I didn't really watch enough of
Yeah.
Kansas, but when I did watch him, he was kind of more of a small forward that kind of played like a power forward. Like he sort of kind of busted inside a lot. Didn't really look to shoot. Really looked to like drive and dish, sort of thing like that. So I don't know. This team, I think the Suns just aren't able to. Just don't have the firepower to make it through and get all the way in into a 10th seed, but I just don't think they want to right now because
There's no upside. Like they
Exactly.
might as well grab another lottery pick.
all right, so that was our Western Conference preview. Stay tuned, comment, like, subscribe. We'll try and get an Eastern Conference preview out there. If you like us, comment, tell us what you want to see more of, and we can also do other stuff like some football, baseball, hockey, soccer too, like anything you want. Let us know. Like I said before, if you didn't like us, just tell us why, and we'll try and improve so we're a better podcast to listen to because we're new to this and we're just trying to grow. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this first episode of the Sports Talk podcast. Thanks.